And the saga continues. American diplomatic staff have just left their consulate in the Chinese city of Chengdu for the first time in 35 years after Chinese staff entered the building and took over. China has ordered the closure in response to the American government's decision to close the Chinese consulate in Houston, Texas last week after claiming that it had become a hub for spying and property theft. Well, we have international affairs expert Michael Szanto joining us from Miami. So what exactly happened in Chengdu? Break it down for us.
Well, it was retaliation for the closure of their consulate in the United States. This particular one, I believe, is actually the first American consulate in China, which George H.W. Bush opened up. So it seems kind of sad, symbolically very sad in terms of what I believe is actually a very important relationship in the world for the United States, for Israel, for example. So I think it's kind of sad that there's this tit-for-tat diplomatic war going on.
Well, why did China choose to close the U.S. consulate in Chengdu specifically and not another location in China?
Well, it has some strategic importance with the ability of the United States to listen to key areas. So that may be, there might be some practical issues, just as the United States chose Houston because it appeared to have operational significance with China. Let me say, China does steal American intellectual property, and it is spying in the United States. It is not faultless by any means. But I don't see China as a hostile power, though. That's why I think we have to be cautious. Unlike, for example, the Russians, whose contractors attacked American forces in Syria, thankfully not armed well enough. And as many as 300 Russians died when the U.S. fired back in February 2018. So I think there's a distinction here. They're not faultless by any means, China.
Well, what does this consulate closure mean for the future of U.S.-China relations in your eyes?
I mean, that's what has me worried. We were working on a trade deal before President Trump took office that did not include China because we wanted to contain China. That's why we have forces in South Korea. That's why we support the Japanese. That's why we support Taiwan. There's increasingly close ties between the United States and India. We see a growing relationship between India and Israel. But I remember in the Cold War, it was Chinese forces that helped balance out the Soviets. So they were very, very important in countering the Russians in the 1970s. And I don't want to push China strategically towards Russia, that is clearly an enemy of the United States, or Iran, which is the world's chief sponsor of terrorism.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us.